Morning, everyone. So, what would you do right now if you learned that you only had 1 hour left to live?
Leave.
Yes, it'd probably start with that. Would you rush home and smoke that Marlboro cigarette that's been hiding in your sock drawer since 2008? Would you call your boss and tell her exactly what's wrong with her? Perhaps you'd drive to the Keg and order their biggest steak rare with a side order of the really bad cholesterol. Hard to say. But of all the things that you would do in your final hour, it's a safe bet that few of them are the things that you actually did this week. The reason that we don't live as though every day was our last is because we don't live for ourselves. We live for our future selves. We don't live for the person that we are today. We live for future us. And we spend our lives constructing a future that will make them happy rather than doing what we would perhaps wish to do today. So every month you try to save a portion of your paycheck so that future you will enjoy their retirement. Every morning you hit the gym so that future you will enjoy good health. You floss your teeth so that future you won't get gum disease, and you don't eat a tub of ice cream every single night because you don't want future you to have whatever problems come with eating a tub of ice cream every single night, right? You are a slave to your future. And this is one of the great things about our species. It may actually be one of the things that makes us unique. We have this frontal lobe which allows us to imagine the future, and we're great at this. And over the next few weeks in church, I want to indulge that imagining by encouraging you to think about your own personal answer to this very important question. What do you really want? Here you are. It's 2017. You have a limited number of years left to live. What is it that you really want out of those years? Okay, so stick that question at the back of your mind. Be thinking about it while we work our way through this morning's Bible lesson. In the 4th chapter of the letter of St. James, he says, "What is it that causes fights and quarrels among you?" So large parts of the New Testament are written responses to questions that people in the church had asked. So at some point, someone in James's church had written to him and said, "James, why is my life so desperately disappointing? Why is it that nothing seems to be working for me? My family is supposed to be my safe place, but it's actually my least favorite place on earth. My church is supposed to be supportive and encouraging, but there are so many people there I don't even like. My work is supposed to be fulfilling and inspiring, but the office politics are so bad that every night I come home feeling drained and disillusioned." So James, here's my question. Why is it not working for me? Why does my life feel like a bad version of expectations versus reality? I expected my life would turn out one way, but what it ended up being was very different. And straight away you can tap into the pathos of both this sentence and this cake. When past you was imagining what your life would be like today, you probably didn't imagine that it would be like this. And the difference between what you wanted and what you got creates a tension that requires processing. When I was getting ready for this series, I, of course, was thinking about my own answer to this question, what is it that I really want? And I'm still thinking about it. One of the early thoughts that I had was that what I really want is not to die in sadness. So I really want not to be lying on my deathbed feeling disappointed with how the whole thing went. I don't want to feel that I lived for 80 years but was only actually alive for 2 of them. I want to have lived as fully and as deeply as possible. But just because I want that doesn't mean I'm going to get it. And we all know this to be true of life. We don't always get what we want, like the song says. So James says the reason in part that you have this tension going on between what you expected from life and what you got from life has got something to do, he says, with the desires that battle within you. In other words, we are all a basket of wants. And the wants are complicated. So when I asked you, what do you really want? It seemed initially like a very simple question. It is, after all, only 5 words. But the more you began to think about it, you realized it's not simple at all. Because if you come up with the wrong answer, you could very well end up with the wrong life. It's complex. For example, one of the things you probably want is your own way. But as most of us have discovered at some point or another, as long as you insist on having your own way, you probably won't get what you really want. That sounds deep, but there is a difference between what you want and what you really want. And sometimes getting what you want means not getting what you really want. So you got the one-night stand, you wanted that, but you didn't get the long-term intimacy that you really wanted. You got to slack off on school like you wanted, but you didn't get the fulfilling, rewarding career that you really wanted. You got to avoid the pain of the gym every day, that's what you wanted, but that meant not getting the long-term health that you really wanted. Another thing that we want is we want to do what we want to do. It's the sales pitch of OLG. We want to do what we want to do, but if we always do what we want to do, we'll eventually end up where we don't want to be. We teach this to our kids all the time, don't we? If you do what you want to do and don't do what you should do, eventually you'll limit your options so much that you'll end up having to do what you really don't want to do. I've got more complex sentences coming. Another thing we want is pleasure. Like, is anyone here not into pleasure? Didn't think so. But this is tricky as well, as we all know, because pleasure can sometimes be a pathway. How many of you hate yourself for playing Candy Crush? Right? And you wish you'd never seen the silly thing. And you're scared to add up how many hours of your life you've wasted staring at your phone like a slack-jawed zombie. Just throwing away hours of your life. Pleasure is awesome. We're a pro-pleasure church. We should probably put that in the advertising. But it doesn't always take us exactly where we really want to go. I don't need to give you examples here, but we can all think of a time where we wanted a certain pleasure and we got it, but getting that pleasure took us further and further away from what we really, really wanted in life. Another thing we want, ladies, is we want it now. Am I right? Want it now. But wanting it now is tricky as well, because what we want now isn't always what we want later. Isn't it true that some of our regrets begin with "I want"? How many of you would love to go back in time and not get what you wanted then? And by extension, how many of your future regrets will involve us looking back to what we really want now and wishing that we never wanted it and never got it? So what do you really want? It's complicated, isn't it? And so I like that the Bible admits that part of the problem is that there's a whole bunch of conflict going on inside us. And some of the things that we want in life are actually awesome and will take us where we really want to go. But other things that we want are not so awesome and will take us further and further away from where we really want, and will eventually take us to a place of regret and disappointment. Then in verse 2 he digs a little deeper. He says, you want to know why it's a mess? Well, it's a mess because you want something but you don't get it. You kill and you covet, but you can't have what you want. So here he speaks to us like we speak to our dogs. You can't have it. No. Bad dog, sit down. I have a theory. I have lots of theories, but I think that most of us don't know what we really want because we're distracted by what we want. Let me say that again. We don't know what we really want because we're too distracted by what we want. You see this all the time at the end of life. A person gets to the final few months of their journey, and suddenly there is an amazing clarity about what they should have wanted, and what they should have gone after, and what they should have made it all about. Very clear at the end of life. But the pain is that instead of going after what they should have wanted, they went after what they actually wanted, and the two things were slightly different. So what really strikes me about this sentence is that the word wanting appears in very close conjunction with the word covet or jealous. And the reason I'm drawn to this is because we live in a culture where a huge percentage of what we think we want is actually determined by what we perceive that other people have. So we open our laptops and we click onto our social media, and where the possessions and the achievements and the lifestyles of others are instantly paraded before our senses. And with the result that as we look at what others have and what others are achieving and how others are living, we often feel dissatisfied with our own lives. And that dissatisfaction becomes the embryo of our wanting. And so we think that if only I could have what they have, and if only I could live like they live, and if only I could achieve what they seem to be achieving, then I would feel better about my life. And that's exactly how crazy our culture is. We allow a ridiculously filtered snapshot of someone else's life to make us unhappy with our life. And that unhappiness becomes the building blocks of what it is we think we want, and what it is we think we should go after, and how it is we think we should all be living. Now, I know that we'd never admit this, that we occasionally get jealous. We will happily admit lots of things. We will admit that we get angry now and again. We will admit that alcohol is an issue in our relationships. We will admit that we work harder than we should, that we're slightly undisciplined. We'll admit lots and lots of things. But we will rarely admit to jealousy. And in the absence of such an admission, here's how it surfaces in our life. There's somebody that we don't like, and they make us feel uncomfortable, and we're not all that sure why. But if we were to dig around in our heart, we would discover that the reason we don't like them is because they are ahead of us in some way. They have something we don't have. They live in ways we can't live. They got somebody we didn't get. And our emotional response to that is cynical and bitter and negative. You know, we don't like them. We make critical comments. And that's how it appears on the surface. But if we are to examine our hearts closely, we discover that our problem is actually that we're jealous, and the closer we get to them and the more we see of them, the worse we feel about ourselves. And so we say silly things like, oh, yeah, we make comments about how perfect they are, and we make cynical remarks. This is a good one, we all do this. We make cynical remarks about how they choose to spend their money. Right, we have phrases like that. If I had what they have, I would never spend it that way. Yeah, can you believe what they bought? How stupid they are. And can you believe where they live? I would never live where they live. I would never buy what they buy. I would never wear what they wear. Did you see what they were wearing? Did you see what they cooked? And we come out with these cynical, negative, bitter comments. But it's true, isn't it? We look at people and we're critical of their life in some way. We have this sharp edge and we make dismissive comments and we can't admit it, not even to ourselves. But it all happens because their place in life makes us feel bad about our place in life. They make us feel insecure about who we are and how we are doing, and we couch it in all sorts of other terms, but we're actually jealous. We're experiencing this thing James is talking about here. We covet, and it leads to wanting. Because they are a reflection, a ridiculously filtered perception, but a reflection nonetheless of what we are not. And that nastiness informs our wanting. It gives us a list of things we think we should be living for, of things we should be pursuing, and of lifestyles we should be going after. How many of our life goals have negativity as their fundamental root? And James says you want these things too much and then you can't get them, and so you get angry. And you lash out. And you get frustrated. He even says you kill. I think that's deliberately extreme language. I never killed anyone. Day isn't over yet, I suppose, but how many times have you killed a deal because you wanted it too much? How many times have you killed an opportunity because you wanted it just too much? Remember back in the day and you were dating and there was that perfect guy and you chased him off because you just came on way too strong, way too soon. You killed it. You just wanted it too much. James is talking about all this negativity here. Wanting the wrong thing in the wrong way at the wrong time. It's nothing but negative. And so much of it is informed by your deep-seated insecurity and jealousy about how you think everyone else is living and how you think you should be living. So as you think about your own personal answer to this very important question, what do you really want? You will not find your best answer by looking at other people. You will find your best answer lurking somewhere in the dark corners of your Christian faith. And so he says you don't have because you don't ask God. And when you ask, you don't receive because you ask with wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. So when he turns the conversation to faith here, I think he's asking his church to think about follow-on questions like, okay, if you want to know what you really want in life, you've got to be thinking about what's really important to you. I mean, forget what you learned from the 65 inches of your television and the 17 inches of your computer monitor. Forget that. What's important to you? What do you value? What do you really value? Because you can't figure out what you really want in life until you first figure out what's important to you and what you think is valuable. And in a culture like ours that puts the wrong value on almost everything, this requires serious and careful thought. Let me tell you about Laurie and Reba. Laurie and Reba Chappelle are twins, but they're different people. Reba is a shy teetotaler who has recorded an award-winning country album. Laurie is an outgoing practical joker who's too fond of strawberry daiquiris. Sometimes they argue as sisters, but most of the time they get on well. As twins, there's nothing remarkable at all about them, except for two things. The first is that they have been joined at the forehead since birth. Interesting reaction from you there. The second is that they are happy. Not just contented, apparently, but actually happy. Actually joyful and optimistic and enthusiastic about life. When asked about the possibility of undergoing a surgical separation, both of them reply, absolutely not. Why would we want to do that? We're happy, we're content, we're optimistic, we love our life. And I can tell from your reaction, audible and visual, that no. I can tell from your reaction that something is wrong with this picture and what I'm telling you about this picture. And there are only two possibilities. The first possibility is that Laurie and Reba simply don't know what happiness is. And so when they say they are happy, they are only able to say that because they don't know what real happiness looks like. The second possibility is that we're wrong. And we don't know what happiness looks like. Our value system, our way of measuring happiness and life itself, is out of whack. In the next sentence, James says, "You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world is hatred towards God? Anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Or do you think that Scripture says without reason that the Spirit he caused to live in us envies intensely?" So when he talks about the Spirit in this sentence, he's not here talking about the Holy Spirit. He's talking about our human nature. And he's saying that to an extent, all of us have a mind that doesn't work all that well. We all envy, we all think that if only we could have this or have that, then we'd feel better about life. To a certain extent, our value system regarding what's important, what matters, what we should be going after, it's all out of whack. And we all have this tension going on as we try to figure out what's really important in life. On the one hand, we're pulled by what he calls this world, this thing we see in our computer screens, our television monitors, and we're pulled in another direction by our faith. And it's a struggle for all of us as we figure this out. So when Laurie and Reba claim to be happy, the reason this is so disturbing to us, and the reason we are so certain that this cannot be true and they must be wrong, is that they just can't know what happiness looks like because they've never had our experiences. They've never gone scuba diving. They've never played ice hockey. They've never walked down the street without drawing a large crowd. Or are we wrong? Are we too friendly with the view of life that our culture gives us and too out of touch with what our faith would teach us? In 1916, the explorer Shackleton began the last leg of what is regarded as history's most grueling adventure. His ship, the Endurance, had sunk near the South Pole. He and his crew became marooned on a small island in one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. And they were there on that island for 7 months. With time running out and food running low, he and a few others decided to get into a very small boat and over 3 weeks crossed 800 miles of raging Southern Ocean. Eventually arriving in South Georgia, his starving, frost-bitten men then had to cross an island on foot to reach a settlement on the other side, a journey that no one had hitherto survived. Listen to what he says about this experience. He says in his diary, "We passed through the narrow mouth of the inlet, with ugly rocks and wavering kelp on either side, and we sailed merrily up the bay as the sun broke through the mist. We were a curious-looking party on that bright morning, but we were feeling happy. I don't think so. You've spent your whole life wanting to become the first person to reach the South Pole. You've failed. You've lost your ship. You've failed. This means you'll never captain another one. You've failed. You're financially ruined. You've failed. You've spent 7 months eating penguins. Probably not good. You've spent 3 weeks crossing 800 miles of the world's most dangerous ocean. And the second you set foot on land, without any equipment, starving and frostbitten, you then have to cross a mountain range and a glacier that no one has ever survived. And you're feeling what? Happy. Is he wrong? Or are we wrong? As I tried to think about my answer to this question, I got a sheet of paper and I drew 4 columns. And in the first column I wrote, what do I need? This is an important consideration in life. I need stuff. You need stuff. You need to pay your hydro bill. That's a need. Right? You need to get a part-time job to pay your hydro bill. That's a need. Forgive the political comments. Then in the next column I wrote, what do I want? I want a bunch of stuff. Some of it's probably good, some of it's probably not. But I have these wants. And then in the next column I tried to figure out which of my wants are actually good, which of them come from my perception of how I'm supposed to be living, which of them come from deeper down, which are the things I really want, which are the things that come from my values, what's really important to me in life. And then in the fourth and final column, I wanted to write down what's right. What's right? The ancient Greeks, particularly the Stoics, forgive me for talking about them too much, but anyway. They had a word for happiness that was different from our word for happiness. I'm not actually sure what our word for happiness is. Like, we all think we know what it means, but if I asked you to describe happiness, I think we would all immediately break down and fumble around in our language. I think happiness for us all is kind of reduced to a you know what I mean feeling. Right? Happiness is difficult to define. But for the Stoic philosophers it wasn't. The Stoic philosophers had a word for happiness that described that feeling you get on a Saturday morning when you've spent 2 hours cleaning your house and you just fold the last item of laundry and you're done. That feeling. That feeling you get when you get to the end of an important project and you did the right thing throughout the whole project, you treated everyone right, you worked hard, you gave your client your best, and it's done. That feeling. This is the feeling I think I want to go after. A feeling that comes from knowing that you did right. That is a happiness. To get to the end of life and to look back on how you did it, up and down, good and bad, and think, I went after what I wanted. I pursued a life of my own choosing, a life that was authentically me. And it was right. I did my best and I did what was right. I'm good. I'm good. More on this in the coming weeks. Let me take this opportunity at the end to wish us all a very happy birthday as a church. 4 years to the day. I don't know how you feel, but I could not be prouder to be a part of a church like this. And I think together we've all done extraordinarily well. I think what we're doing together is awesome. I think it's important. I think it's right. And I think it's worth investing our lives in. And so yeah, well done. Happy birthday. More on this next week.